It's the morning of my wedding. I should be excited, maybe even a little nervous in that jittery, giddy way brides are supposed to feel. Instead, my stomach twists with something heavier, something I can't shake. The bridal suite is alive with energy. My bridesmaids laugh and chatter as makeup artists work their magic, curling hair, blending shadows, and dabbing gloss. Their happiness fills the room, but it doesn't touch me. I sit silently, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me is beautiful, flawless even. My hair is styled in elegant waves, my skin glowing, but her eyes give her away. They're shadowed with guilt. I can still hear their voices from last night, the teasing, the encouragement. "This is your last night as a single woman," my maid of honor had said, handing me another glass of champagne. "We're going out with a bang!" It started innocently enough. The girls had planned a private bachelorette party, just the 6 of us in a rented suite with a handful of men they'd invited. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but they were insistent. "Relax," one of them said, laughing. "You're marrying Mr. Perfect tomorrow. What's one night of fun?" I didn't know he would be there. When I saw him, the air left my lungs. He stood across the room, a drink in hand, looking just as I remembered. My ex. The man I thought I'd spend forever with, before everything fell apart. Our eyes met, and the world seemed to tilt. He didn't look away, and neither did I. "This is insane," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't be here, and yet, here I am," he replied, his voice low, almost a murmur. "Tell me to leave, and I will." I couldn't bring myself to say it. The air between us felt heavy, thick with everything we weren't saying. He took a step closer, and I could feel the warmth of his presence behind me. His fingers brushed lightly against my arm, sending a shiver through me. Slowly, I turned to face him, and when our eyes met, the years apart melted away. "Why are you here?" I asked, though the answer didn't really matter. "Because I needed to see you, one last time." His words were a punch to the chest, and before I could stop myself, I closed the distance between us. Our lips met in a hesitant kiss, tentative at first, like we were testing a line we both knew we shouldn't cross. But then the dam broke, and the kiss deepened. Years of longing and unspoken feelings spilling over. He held me like he was afraid to let go, his hands firm yet gentle as they moved down my back. I reached up, my fingers tangling in his hair, as the world outside faded to nothing. He stepped back, his chest rising and falling heavily as he looked at me. "We don't have to do this," he said, his voice rough with emotion, but I didn't respond. Instead, I reached for the zipper of my dress and let it slide down, the fabric pooling at my feet. I stood before him, bare and vulnerable, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. His eyes traveled over me, his expression unreadable. He stepped closer, lifting a hand to trace the curve of my collarbone, his touch feather-light. "You're still so beautiful," he murmured, his voice filled with a mix of awe and sadness. I reached for him, pulling him into another kiss, and this time there was no hesitation. We moved to the bed, our movements slow and deliberate, like we were savoring every second. He kissed a trail down my neck, his lips lingering on every inch of skin he touched. My breath hitched as his hands found their way to my waist, pulling me closer. I let myself get lost in him, in the way his hands explored me, like he was trying to memorize every curve, every detail. His touch was familiar but electric, a mix of comfort and excitement that left me breathless. He cupped my breast, his fingers tracing soft circles as his lips moved lower. I felt the heat between my legs, an undeniable wetness building, as he continued to explore me with a tenderness that made my heart ache. I traced my hands across his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my fingers. He looked at me with an intensity that made my stomach flip, his eyes dark with emotion. "You've always been the one," he whispered, his voice heavy with meaning. I closed my eyes, letting his words sink in even as they filled me with guilt. This was wrong. It was so wrong. But in that moment, I couldn't bring myself to stop. We fell into a rhythm, our bodies moving in perfect sync. It was passionate, but there was an undercurrent of sadness, like we both knew this was the end of something we'd never truly let go of. His hands roamed over me with a desperate kind of reverence, and I clung to him like he was the only thing keeping me grounded. For those moments, there was no wedding, no promises, no guilt, just us. And it was everything and nothing all at once. When it was over, we lay side by side in silence. The weight of what we'd done settled over me like a blanket, suffocating and inescapable. "This doesn't change anything," I said finally, my voice barely audible. He turned to look at me, his expression unreadable. "Doesn't it?" I couldn't answer. Instead, I turned away, staring at the ceiling as tears slid silently down my cheeks. Now, here I am, hours later, walking down the aisle with my dad. The church is packed, and all eyes are on me. My gown sways gently as I move forward, the soft hum of the organ filling the air. Every step feels like it's in slow motion, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. My groom stands at the altar, looking dashing in his suit, his smile brighter than the sun streaming through the stained glass windows. He looks at me with those eyes, full of love, full of promise, and for a second, I almost feel like everything will be okay. I try to focus on him, on the life we're about to begin together, but last night lingers like a ghost, haunting every step I take. I can still feel his touch, still taste his kiss. The guilt is suffocating, but I can't shake the memory of what we shared. It's like a weight pressing on my chest, dragging me down, and no matter how hard I try to push it away, it follows me here, into this perfect, fragile moment. I reach the front of the church, my father's hand warm on my arm as he places me in front of my groom. The pastor begins the ceremony, but I barely hear him. My thoughts are consumed with the memory of what happened just hours ago. The pastor's voice breaks through my thoughts, steady and calm, as though nothing could possibly go wrong. "If anyone here has a reason why this union should not take place, speak now or forever hold your peace." The room falls silent. The weight of the words hangs in the air like a heavy fog, and I feel it settle around me. For a moment, I think I've made it. The ceremony will go on without a hitch, and I'll be able to push all the doubts away. But then, a sound. The creak of the heavy wooden doors. My breath catches in my throat. I don't need to turn around to know who it is. My heart sinks, my world tilting on its axis. I can hear the unmistakable sound of his footsteps, the tension in every one of them, as though he's walking into my nightmare with the full knowledge of what he's about to do. And then his voice, cutting through the heavy silence like a knife. "I do," he says firmly, his words thick with something I can't quite place. Anger, regret, or maybe both. "I slept with her last night." The words hit me like a physical blow. My legs tremble, and my vision blurs. I can feel the blood draining from my face, the room spinning as gasps ripple through the crowd, sharp and disbelieving. My mind races, trying to process what's happening, but the truth sinks in like a cold, hard reality. This isn't a nightmare, it's real. The faces around me blur, their whispers louder now, their eyes all fixed on me as if waiting for me to explain, to make sense of this chaos. But there's no explanation. There's nothing I can say. The pastor stares at my ex, then back at me, his expression one of confusion and disbelief. The silence is deafening, suffocating. The weight of the moment presses down on me, and I feel like I'm suffocating under its gaze. My groom's expression changes, his smile faltering as the words sink in. The man I'm about to marry, the one I thought I could trust, is staring at me with a mix of hurt and anger that I don't know how to fix. I want to say something, anything, but the words are trapped in my throat. I try to look at him, to reach for him, but my hands feel like they're bound by invisible chains. And then, from the corner of my eye, I see the man who's just ruined everything I thought I knew about love, standing in the doorway, his eyes locked onto mine, full of regret. And I wonder if I'll ever be able to look at anyone the same way again.